Neil to Harms, 45 out, open goal line, somehow a goal.
Across to Jones, hand passes back to Tom McDonald, who kicks a goal.
Comes out now to Vandenberg, on his left, snaps round the corner, and gets a goal. Brayshaw to Fritz, maybe a chance here for the Demons. That kick had to be spot on. It was. It'll bounce up nicely for Hannon. There's a man in the goal square. Hannon fires it that way. Melcham will mark. Melcham will goal and pops up his fans. Dean Kent back at home from 50. Kicks towards goal. It is straight. The Demons out by 11.
Petrarca, he finds Melcham, snaps and puts it through.
Melbourne playing finals football.
Keep your eye on the red and the blue.
Come on, Demons. Come on, Demons. Come on, Demons. Come on, Demons. Come on, come on, come on, come on, Demons.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me tonight again, the Grapeviney. Good evening, Grapeviney.
Good evening, Andy. How are you?
Yeah, I'm in a much better mood this week than I was probably this time last week. What a difference a week in football makes.
Absolutely. Excited tonight. We're out with the old Demonland podcast and in with a new format, now with 100% more finals.
And more positivity.
So, very exciting.
Also joining
Yes,
us.
that too.
Also joining us tonight, the creator of the Bradbury Plan, Super Mikado. Good evening. How are you?
Oh, I've never been happier to have all my gimmicks erased in one afternoon, gentlemen. I'm bursting with a religious fervour for the D's, even 2 or 3 days later. And the good news from Canberra is that I hear Neville Jett has just been elected Prime Minister, so it just keeps getting better for the D's.
Fantastic. So the Bradbury Plan, it's dead, it's buried. I mean, there's still, there's a slight chance that we can miss the final still, is there not?
I believe if we have about a 350-point swing versus whatever Port do. But I can confirm the speculative 50 I had on us to miss the finals at 9-1. The said betting agency is refusing to offer a early payout figure on that. So if the people with massive money interests are happy with us not stuffing it up, then I'm happy with us too. I'll go with it. It's
just what a fantastic victory to go over to the West. It's probably one of the hardest trips to make in football. I personally went over there. The new stadium it's fantastic. It's a fantastic stadium. It looks great from the outside, and just the atmosphere inside of there. Unfortunately, it is West Coast Eagles supporters, but every time they got the ball, every time they kicked a goal, even after they kicked the goal and the ball went back to the centre, just the cheers and you feel like you're in a coliseum. And I've been to games at the G with 80,000, and it sounded like that, and there were 55,000 people there.
Jordan Lewis said last night on AFL 360 that it was one of the loudest crowd noises that he's ever experienced. So
I've never heard louder.
That backs it up.
I've been when Richmond are at the G and thundering support, and this sounded louder. I don't know if it's just the acoustics or something, or maybe the passion or idiocy of their fans. Because the
nervousness,
or maybe their fans. I must say, I love a boo. Grapeviney sits near me at the footy. He's probably heard me boo a decision here or there, but they boo absolutely everything to the point where even if a guy has his head taken off, like I can recognise when one of our players has infringed, and if the free's there, it's there. There's no such thing as the freeze there. It's there's no freeze should be awarded.
I can imagine. I imagine it's the equivalent of when I sat next to the St Kilda cheer squad in the '98 finals, and remember Barry Hall did a flying knee drop on one of the Phoebe brothers, and I just got for the rest of the game. It was Europe. There's things you can't even say on broadcast now, but it was like soft. You know, it's your fault, etc., etc. Nothing. Barry had done nothing wrong when he just dropped a knee into him. I expect that's the same sort of parochial, off-their-face atmosphere that these people are bringing, except that instead of 50 nutters, there was 55,000 nutters.
Yeah, and I sat next to, I got there a little bit early, and I purchased sort of premium sort of tickets. I was right on the wing. I was virtually dead centre to the centre of the ground. I was 13 rows back from on the bottom level. And what's good about this stadium is the front row is actually raised up. It's not on ground, exactly on ground level, as you can tell by the behind the goal stuff. So it was perfect height. So I sat next to a nice old chap next to me. He was very friendly. I sort of told him, you could see I was a Melbourne supporter, in amongst all premium West Coast support, people who have bought the premium memberships. So I was having a chat with him. I said, look, I'm not going to give you any stick during the game. I know what it's like. When I was saying it last week when I wasn't going to get lippy anyway. And this guy was very nice, but as the day wore on, he became more and more unreasonable with the type of free kicks. So towards the end of the game, I started to get a bit more lippy towards the end, especially once we had started to win. But there were no fights, thankfully. But it was a good day at all round.
Well, it's
Were there
about
lots of
time they
Melbourne
got
supporters
stitched
over
up.
there? Because, sorry, you go.
No, I was just saying it's about time that Eagles fans got legitimately stitched up instead of just thinking they've been stitched up all the time. So, but no, there's been no better time ever for that to happen.
Well, I must say that I was talking about how they don't recognise free kicks, but I was also telling the guy next to me about that stat, the free kick differentials, which we had put back up on the site this week over a 15-year period. I think they have a plus, some ridiculous thing like plus 700. And I was telling him about this stat, and he just couldn't believe it. He thinks that they get screwed week in, week out by the umpires, which clearly the stats tell a different story. Great. Grapevine, you wanted to say something before?
No, I was just going to ask, were there lots of Melbourne supporters over there? Because I saw, I don't think it was on the TV coverage, but in one of the pictures later, that in addition to the cheer squad behind the goals, there seemed to be another section where there were quite a lot of Melbourne supporters all sitting together.
Unless they were sitting...
Did I see that?
Unless they were sitting above me and behind where I couldn't see, I couldn't tell that. Everything was West Coast. Besides behind the goals. So unless there was a section up in the stands, I didn't see it. You'd see a smattering of a few Melbourne lone Demon supporters like myself there. And certainly outside the ground after, any Melbourne supporter I saw with a Melbourne scarf was my best mate. And all very jovial, of course. But no, I didn't see any big, huge areas besides behind the goals of Melbourne supporters. And you could probably hear you could hear a pin drop when we kicked a goal. Actually, when watching the replay, it sounded louder because they must have had a microphone in someone's pocket because I couldn't hear it at the ground.
Maybe near our cheer squad.
Yeah, you couldn't hear it at the ground. But enough about my experience. The game in itself, fantastic. I thought it was great. There were, we got that good early start, and then, I was a little bit disappointed at quarter time. I felt it was sort of the reverse of the Adelaide game, where we sort of, Adelaide came out, firing, and then we sort of pegged it back to 9 points when it seemed like we should have been further behind. And I felt this was the reverse in this game. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're
well,
absolutely right. I
yeah.
did feel the same as that Adelaide game, that we were lucky, they were lucky to be as close as they were at quarter time, and that we hadn't properly put them away. And then we sort of got out to the same sort of lead in the third quarter and gave that up as well. But overall, look, you're over there. It's twice the temperature that they've been here. It's pretty hard to hold it against them for, giving up a couple of runs of goals when, I think that's what we've talked about all year, is us giving up massive runs of goals. And they held so tough in that last quarter, especially when they went the goal down. The goal that ended with Melksham in the square was almost reminiscent of the Christian Salem against Essendon from a few years back, for the ball moving from one end to the other, and absolutely everything going right. Unfortunately, this time the Eagles defender took a wrong turn and left Melksham to just wander into the square at his own. So it took the drama out of a set shot. But look, I think there's nothing to complain about in this game. After we thrashed them for being, crumbling under pressure the week before, it was such a ballsy performance under pressure that, it's impossible not to be proud of them.
Yeah, I thought there were a few times in the game where we sort of got out to, either 2-goal leads, or obviously in the first quarter we got out to over 20, and later in the third we got over 27, I think, and allowed them to come back. But I thought it was really great that every time they sort of closed the gap on us, whether it was the 2-goal gap or the 4-goal gap, we were still able to stem that flow back and kick a goal or two and get back. Get a lead back, and that culminated in us, getting the last 3 goals of the game. When I must admit, when they got their nose in front, I thought, oh, here we go. They're just going to steamroll us now, and credit to the boys. It's just an amazing effort for them, to kick those last 3 goals and put the game away and put us back into the finals for the first time in 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, we talked in previous weeks about composure, and it was just a completely different side on Sunday. The composure at the end to not panic when they did go behind, and just some of the the lowering of the eyes going forward, and some of the passing was just 100% better than it's been in previous weeks. So, it was great all round.
I thought the set shots for goal were a lot better this week. Obviously, we didn't have the same scoreline as the Sydney game,
and it was good to get off with a goal.
Yes,
the first shot went through. That was a settler for me. Might not have meant anything to the players, but it made me feel better.
It certainly did.
Me too.
I was impressed with Wiedemann. He finally took a couple of those really good marks. He took one in the forward line early on, and then he took one sort of on the half-forward flank where he sort of juggled it a bit, but it's great to see him starting to get his hands on it, and I'm sure his confidence is all the more better for it. So, yeah.
And a couple of other contests where he didn't bring the mark down, but he broke a pack, or he brought the ball to ground. So I thought he was great. Look, I was suspect on picking him.
Who would you have had instead? Were you?
It's hard to say in retrospect. I was almost of the put Pettis in the forward line. Play it very safe camp, but I'm very much pleased to have been proven wrong.
It'd be good to see how he goes this week.
The other impressive thing about Wiedemann was that he was really good early. Now, of course, the heat was on all game. But I thought, particularly in that first half, he, along with Max, was actually sort of quite dominant.
Yeah, and the field's open for him now. Like, Hogan's not coming back this year. Pedersen is pretty much, has been taken out of the forward mix. So it's really Wiedemann versus Tim Smith. So it's hard to see how he could do anything that would lose him his spot going into the finals.
You mentioned Hogan, so I might bring this up now. How do you think we played without Hogan? Do you think we played differently? I know it didn't seem like we were just bombing it in to a contest. A little bit more methodical with the way we were bringing it in than we do with Hogan. Did you guys see the same? He's
got a remarkable knack for not being there in the greatest wins of the of the years. Like I'm actually trying to think back to an epic great leap forward victory that we've had in the last few years, that he was actually playing. And again, I think it's like I said last week, this is not against him. I think it's possibly just a massive coincidence. But it's just remarkable how many times, like, we may as well just win the flag now because he's not there, because we just keep doing all these bizarre things. Well, all right, well, let's win an elimination final, let's win a semi, let's win a prelim, and let's win a grand final as well, and just complete the set. I just can't explain it, and maybe it is that we play differently, but it's just a remarkable knack for not being there when something totally amazing happens.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate out there. I don't personally agree with this. There's many people on Demon Land who do subscribe to this. Would you? I mean, I don't think either of you. It's stupid to ask you guys, because I don't think you will answer this question. I think I know what you're going to say, but people are saying we should trade him. Do either of you guys subscribe to that? And I say, when you say trade, I'll devil's advocate. I don't subscribe to this. But if we were offered a first round pick and a semi decent player, obviously not a 5 type player.
Don't know if Freo have any of those.
Yeah. Well, all right. So a very low early draft pick. Would we consider it? Do you think, or would it just be a straight out no?
There's a couple of things here. One is that it's not so surprising that we can get by without Hogan, because we're, as keeps being said, we're a forward half team and we generate millions of inside 50. So there's enough ball getting in there that regardless of the personnel, we should be able to kick a decent score most weeks. But look, I'm not in the trade Hogan camp, but the form of Wiedemann and the continuing development of Wiedemann and the likelihood that he's going to come on as a player definitely raises the question as to how the forward line shapes up in the future next year when Jesse's back. Goodwin was happy to play the 3 talls earlier in the year. It only lasted for a few games, I think, before Sam was out. But can it work with 3 talls in the forward line?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it had its ups and downs in the weeks where we did do it. I think probably 2 is the better option, which is probably makes it unfortunate for a Wiedemann. You'd almost, if you were him, you'd want to be sort of confirming with the club yourself that Hogan was going to stay there. So you pick up the phone and start calling around elsewhere, because if he just gets stuck behind Hogan and McDonald for another year and only plays 3 or 4 games, when obviously no one wants to go to a crap club, but I'm sure he would walk straight into a Gold Coast or a Carlton.
St Kilda.
St Kilda, exactly. Like there would be interest in him, and I did see something which could have been bollocks, but a suggestion that Geelong was looking at him. From his perspective, it's not incumbent on him to hang around and spend the next 2 years playing 15 games a year at Casey. So if I was him, I would be very keen on finding out what's happening to Hogan, and I don't think Hogan will be going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Why would you go to Freo? Why would you have gone through all this and go to Freo? Now, there could be a surprise where, West Coast go, well, Josh Kennedy's not getting any younger. Let's have a ping at Hogan. But I just can't see that Hogan will be going anywhere. But I think we do need to look at the forward structure and how it works. I mean, we're the highest scoring team in the comp. I know that's off the back of massacring some of the rubbish teams. But we know it can be done, and we know he's kicked 45-odd goals for the season. I think that's the 2 I want, but that's with respect to Wiedemann, that I still want to see him get a decent run at it as well.
Hell's Bells in the chat room has said madness. He shouldn't be traded unless he wants to go home, and I guess that answers one of your things, that why would he want to go to Freo? That's, I guess, balls in his court.
Yeah,
in terms of whether he wants to
I'd
go
be
home.
Ringing up West Coast as well and saying, hey, any danger? I'd be doing a political style smear campaign on West Coast's forward line to try and drum up some interest in them picking me up instead of Freo. Freo
there's one thing
he might have helped them to break the 23 goal streak that Geelong put on Saturday.
Yeah.
One thing you can be sure of is that there won't be too many players that want to leave Melbourne right now. Hogan included.
No, absolutely not. And I see here there's a John Demonic says Tom Mack back eventually, to which I would say, for God's sake, no. As much as
No.
I liked him as a defender more than most people, but I think he is such a cog player forward now. Find a defender. Go out and find a defender to take his spot at the back if you need. He stays forward, probably for the rest of his career.
Yeah, he led well. He got sort of out the back well. He took a couple marks, he took a couple goals. But
and even standing up in tackles and just being a physical presence in the forward line. There was the one where did he kick it where he gave it to Jones, who gave it back to him to kick it.
Yeah,
where he just stood tall in congestion.
Yeah,
I think by the modern standard of the Coleman being a 60 goal competition, I think he's an unreal forward. I think he's the best forward we've had since David Neitz. I could not even think, if they put him back, because last week I thought they might put him back and I'm going to smash the joint. And I'm glad they stuck with him forward, even though he didn't have his best game against the Swans. I just can't even think about wasting him now as a forward, especially at this point at the time of the year when I understand there's a Collingwood VFL defender that we're right into. It's better to go and get some cover in defence than even think about moving him out of the forward line.
If he'd played a full year, he'd probably be leading the Coleman. So there's no way he's going back.
So he missed about 7 games, didn't he?
Yep.
And what's he averaging?
Yeah, 6. I think he was back for 6.
Yeah. So what's he averaging this year?
He was up to about 4 at one point, but I think it's come down a little bit. He's likely to pass Hogan for the club lead in the next week, if not the next 2 weeks. I think he's only 1 behind. So he's kicked 45 goals in 16 games.
Yeah.
Do your own maths. Get your calculators out on that one.
How important to our team do you think Melksham and Hibberd are? I mean, considering the way both of them played, Hibberd earlier, Melksham throughout the day. We really missed them when they weren't there. Very important to our team.
Yeah, and just love the fact that they're from Essendon. And Milkshake particularly was a whipping boy over there, and he's just come so good for us. We rely on both of them.
I got a question from a listener to us via Skype. I'll just mention now, if you do want to call us, join us on the show, 0390163666. That's 0390163666. Or you can Skype us, Demonland31. Just like John has messaged me through that. He does want to call us, but he's got a question for all of us. What one piece of play inspired you the most in Sunday's game? And I'll give mine first, if you guys want to have a think about it. There was a play, Clary out of the middle, sort of did got the ball, blind turn out of the middle, kicked it down, and then got the handball back, like came in barreling in and picked up the ball inside 50 and gave off a handball. And I just thought, that's just vintage Clary Oliver. And I think that play ended. It did. I can't remember who kicked it, but it ended up in the goal.
It was straight out of the middle. So was it one of the 2 in a row, or was it a response to one of theirs?
It was either or, but
either way.
Either way, it was great. I love that.
I'm going to opt for double Neville Jetta. One was that cracking tackle. And 2 was the one where he took the mark while he was being absolutely manhandled by his opponent in the wrestle and still managed to mark the ball.
Yeah, amazing. Love Nev. Grapevine, you got anything that sticks out?
Yeah, I actually liked the pointing out on the couch on Monday night of the toe of God.
Yes.
And that whole passage of play was superb, because that toe actually was quite important. The ball was about to go past Jones, and he's managed to get it out from the stoppage, and it looked like we could be stuck in a stoppage swamp at that stage. So there was an important clearance. And then the kick from Christian Salem,
It was beautiful.
which only went to 15 or 20.
Absolute deliberate,
was
though.
superb.
Yeah.
Because it was hurried, but it was deliberate,
Yep.
and it hit him perfectly. And then that then set up the rest of the play, which
There were
was
two
just
other
ripper stuff.
There were two other great kicks in that. There was Fritsch's kick that someone in the
Yep.
chat room mentioned. If you want to join us in the chat room, demonland.com/podcast. Fritsch's kick and then Hannon's kick, both
Hannon,
weighted
yep.
perfectly. And I must say it was great. Hannon returning, great for the team too. He did the Hannon things that he does.
Can I just tell you something that happened to me in that moment when Hannon was running with the ball?
Yep.
I was standing in a very animated way in front of my television at that point, and I spotted and registered Melksham in the square before I could vocalise the words, and I was stuck. It was almost like, in a dream when you can't scream. So I was trying to alert Mitch Hannon to what was up ahead, and thankfully he saw it.
Through the TV, yes. I believe that works every time.
Yeah, we've all tried it, believe me. There was a lot of advice directed towards my television on Sunday afternoon.
So we were talking about your reactions. There were a lot of reactions. Someone mentioned in our thread for the podcast for tonight about your reactions to either of you guys. What was your reactions, Super Mikado? What did you do?
I made an absolute goose of myself, to be honest. Look, as we've discussed before, my default position for viewing games on television is to literally stand and hover over my television.
Yeah.
So at the best of times, when we played Brisbane or Gold Coast this year, I was doing that. But this added a lot of pacing back and forth. There was a lot of pacing back and forth. There was a lot of screaming, a lot of shouting, to the point where I had to apologise to my daughter because she thought I was yelling at her, even though she was in another room, so I don't know how she got that. My beloved wife, who is not a football guru, did not actually understand the concept of the game and thought I was just going off chops for just a normal victory, to which I had to explain after the significance of the victory. When West Coast kicked the goal to go ahead, I did scream words to the effect of, "They can't do this to me." And I did at one point run into another room so I wasn't doing it in front of my family, pulled a blanket over my head and screamed several obscenities in quick succession. Then when Kent got the goal, when he converted, and let me say, I had a flashback when he took that mark to that North Melbourne game in Hobart about 3 years ago when he kicked a goal in the last minute that gave us half a chance. It set up the chance that Stretch missed. And I just had this confidence that he was going to kick it again, just based on the fact that he'd kicked a clutch goal before, which is nothing scientific. But as it went in, I fell to my knees and started slapping the ground and yelling, "Yes, yes, yes, yes," to the point where about 45 minutes later, when the adrenaline wore off, I realised that I really had hurt my right wrist, and basically can't bend my right wrist back to this point now without it being sore. It was quite. And then at the siren, I just did I just ran around the house with my arms in the air in celebration. I really think my wife missed an opportunity to do like David Schwartz's wife and at least audio record me, because I was just talking crap to myself all day. But that last quarter, it was like the Geelong last quarter, in that there was bits that I watched on the replay that I got the order wrong in my head.
Yeah.
Or I didn't remember that happened because I was in such like a psychological state of siege that, normal reasoning and, comprehension of what was going on was just totally out the window. So if there's, I'm still not sure it's the closest I've ever come to a heart attack at a game. But I guess being away from it helps with that. Like, had I been there, like yourself, I probably would have been in heart attack territory. But that being separate a bit from it probably calmed me down a bit, but also the fact that I could walk around. Whereas if you're in a stadium, where do you get the energy out? You might be able, if you pull some row gimmick or something, you might be able to walk around a little bit. But being at home, at least I could, turn around and kick the couch and scream out obscenities and God knows what. So, but yeah, I must say when Kent kicked the goals, there was almost tears. I could feel it coming, but then I realised we were still only 11 points up with 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And I regained my composure.
I wasn't relaxed after the Kent goal at all. I mean, I was ecstatic and I cheered it loudly, but 2 minutes 20 is more than enough time to concede 2 goals. We've seen that with the 44 seconds against St Kilda, but it only takes 15 seconds out of the medal to get a goal, so plenty of time. But
absolutely, yeah, I caught myself just as I was about to, get emotional about the moment. So now I wish I had, but it's all right. The tears never actually came in the end. Like even when we kicked the other goals, when the siren, like that ship had sailed. But I still, I was just, it was like nothing that is, nothing that I've felt in footy for a long time. It was just that relief off the back, knowing that if we didn't win this, nothing was guaranteed this week. Just to know that there was nothing, no one could take it away from us, was amazing.
We've got a caller on the line. Caller, you're on the air. How are you?
Good. Hello, gentlemen. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Who are we talking to?
It's D. Zephyr.
Oh, D. Zephyr, how you doing, mate?
Well, fantastic. Wise choice going over to Perth, Andy.
Oh,
good on you, mate.
Mate, it's a trip of a lifetime. I'll never forget it. Would have been a long ride home had we lost. And it made it all the better for the win, and in turn the getting into the finals is the cherry on the top.
I still can't get over it, to be honest. But what I wanted to talk about was a little bit about the game. We can single out individual moments, some one-on-one critical contests, but. As you've alluded to it already, the fact that, we got off to a good start, we were challenged probably 2 or 3 times throughout the game. And then when West Coast hit the front, I thought that was one of the best responses I've ever seen in the last 10 years, to be honest. I can't remember how I was feeling when they hit the front, but I was thinking there was ample time for us to swing this around. And it probably wouldn't be a more important 6 or 7 minutes coming up for the club in the last 10 years. And the way they responded was just unbelievable. I think West Coast might have gone inside 50 twice for the rest of the game after they hit the front. The way we were able to close them down and hurt them the other way, it was just brilliant. They all bought in. Fantastic effort.
Yeah.
Overall. And just the emotions, I've been reading the threads today about all the, levels of support. I was watching, all 4 of us were watching in the lounge room, a bit like Super Mikado. My son and I were pacing up and down the entire last quarter. When West Coast hit the front, my wife and daughter, they've had enough by that stage. And when they're watching the bedroom, they just, had enough of us 2 carrying on. When Kent marked that ball, my son said, "This is a big kick, Dad." And I said, "Probably the biggest we've seen for a while." He kicked it. I wanted to jump and celebrate, but it felt like my feet were nailed to the ground. I'm like, started getting text messages from my friends saying, you're in finals. And I was like, please go away. There's still 2 minutes. We could still lose this. But the moment came when track hit Melksham and reality sort of started to set in. And when that snap went through, I could feel the tears in my eyes. But it wasn't until the moment my son, who's been coming to the football with me, I think, since about 2015. He was old enough to understand what's going on. Put his arms around my waist, looked at me and said, "Dad, I'm so happy right now." Wow. And that, I couldn't hold the tears back. It just started streaming down my cheek. It might be embarrassing, but you live in the moment, guys. We are human.
Exactly.
And we've all got memories of not the ultimate success, but, we're old enough to have memories of the good stuff. Whereas, kids that, probably even worse for kids that are a little bit older than your boy that really lived the slop. But kids who have just, all they've known is Melbourne being a laughing stock. And now, yes, it's only minimum 1 final, But it just changes the whole narrative. And if this had gone wrong, if we'd lost that game and we'd lost this week and we'd missed out, it would be another 12 months of, Melbourne, look, they can't hack the pressure. What a comedy club, all that. Now, narrative totally changed. So I'm hoping, and I believe that this can be the great leap forward that gives us a few years of sustained contendership at the very least.
I'm positive that us just getting in now is exactly what the players needed. They needed that monkey off the back, even though it wasn't their monkey. Well, some of them was from last year, but just all the baggage from all the other years wasn't their monkey. The fact that that's off now, I think, will be a huge positive for the team. And that mentally weak thing, I think that's gone now. And I mean, maybe next week we'll be talking about a different show.
Like hit replay on last week, and you can probably find us go, it's terrible. They'll never be any good. Shut the club down. Whereas a week later, it's like they're the greatest club of all time, and we're going to win every flag for the next 10 years. But I guess that's what seeing one performance that was just full of guts will do for you when you've started to lose faith that they can pull out a performance that's full of guts.
Absolutely. D. Zephyr, anything else you want to bring up?
There's a lot of work, hard work ahead this season, but a moment like that, I don't think most of us won't forget that for a long time. As it was just brilliant. But you know what? Like you said, believe in themselves now. That last 7 minutes has changed everything, in my opinion.
Yeah, agree.
And just very happy. Keep up the great work, guys.
Thanks, mate.
Fantastic work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's it. Hopefully someone else rings through now. I want to hear some more stories.
Yeah, we'd love to, guys. We'd love to hear your reaction stories. We'll talk about David Schwartz's reaction in a moment. 039016 3666, as we say thank you to D. Zephyr. Speak to you soon, mate. Or you can Skype us on Demonland 31. David Schwartz's reaction. Did you? First of all, that also watching his reaction brought a tear to my eye for two reasons. One, it's great seeing like ex-players still have that passion for the club. There's quite a few of them out there that still have a huge passion for the D's. And the second reason it brought a tear to my eye is his son, who I believe is 13 years old. He's almost taller than Schwartz, and I just hope he can play footy, because wouldn't that be fantastic?
Someone suggested on the thread, and that was the first thing that crossed my mind, or the second thing that crossed my mind when I saw the video too, is, oh, hello, look out. But apparently he's more into basketball at the moment than footy.
That can change.
That's the key recruiting ground for footy players.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yep.
I'm sure Petraka was probably in the same boat at that age as well. They love the basketball. My nephews love basketball, but they love their footy as well. And I think it depends on how good he is at it, because I'm sure like young boys probably dream of playing in the NBA. So we'll see what happens.
Well, this just brings up another problem though. Then you got Hogan, McDonald, Wiedemann, and Schwartz. So Ford doesn't go. It's not going to work.
I think he's five.
Can we make him a
5 years
defender?
Away. Well, we can do that.
I thought it was nice that that video probably got more views than Macquarie Sports Radio's actually had listeners combined since it started. So it was good that they had a win for once. And I guess from my perspective, it was kind of I got a bit emotional seeing that, just seeing him with his kid. Like that's probably. And I know I've made a lot of mileage over being a football loner over the years, but I guess it's moments like that where you actually do think, Jesus, I wish someone else was here to share it with. So for all of you and for D. Zephyr, that's amazing being able to share that with someone. Whereas I had, someone who was just doing their thing, cooking in the kitchen, going, "That's nice, dear," and a kid who was just running riot, doing whatever she wanted. Although, funny story, the last 10 weeks or last 7 or 8 weeks, I've asked her before the game if we're going to win or not, and she's nailed it every time. Like literally every week she's got it right. I forgot this time. And then halfway through the last quarter, I think it was just when they got in front, and I was, just returned from my tantrum in the other room. She was playing with a little like wand, and she's coming up and she said, "Oh, I'm going to cast a spell." And I said, "Can you cast a spell that turns the Demons into a finals team?" And she went, "Wah, rah, 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 bah," and then we won.
Oh, okay. Well, we found
So
out.
absolutely delivered the goods there. So I'll take that.
Well, if anyone wants to join Super Mikado at the footy and hopefully he's not lonely anymore, you can give us a call. But we do have
You have to be able to climb stairs.
Yes, you have to sit in the back row. Maybe we've had the guys from Sports Hosts on before. Maybe you can give them a call. And
If there's any sort of like, people who are scared of crowds or something who want to come sit up the back with the, I'll be happy to host them.
We do have another caller on the air. Good evening. I believe it's Don't Make Me Angry. How are you, mate?
How you going? You can hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, that's good. Oh, yes. It's a big different emotion this week than last week, isn't it?
Oh, mate,
last week's podcast.
It's incredible. One week we're ready to sort of, give it all in, burn memberships. Not quite, but and then the next week, Cloud 9. It's great.
Yes, I didn't listen to this live last week, but I was just listening to last night, the recording of it, and it was. I'm glad now Super Mikado can now go on with his life there, because now he's seen us go in the finals, and now he can join his new job without worrying, without saying, last week he was very worried about never seeing Melbourne successful.
Correct.
Now that he's going to have a new job.
I think that fitted into my complete psychosis in the last quarter, that knowing that I was just about to grab that. So, yes, I will go into part-time semi-retirement, at least happy that I got some reward for the 12 years of often total bollocks that I've just sat through.
Yeah, that's great, and I think we're all in the same boat as you, mate. We've all been like this year. I'm not allowed to watch my team at home with my wife home. I can't watch. She thinks that people watch the TV without making a sound. She thinks you've got to just sit there and be calm. So, and she goes, "Oh, look at you carrying on. You're not a very good role model for your son." And I said, "Oh, you should see some other people that are way worse than me." But I'm just not allowed to. But on Sunday, my son was having his under 12s Lightning Premiership Day. They had gone undefeated all year, and they had to 4 games. They had to play 2 10-minute halves to win the premiership, and they had done that as well. So they went undefeated.
What are you in bed?
I am going to be in bed.
What are you doing?
I'm on the phone.
This is like when that bloke's kids broke in on him when he was doing the cross on the BBC.
Sorry.
Now I think we now understand what you went through on Sunday.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry.
Have we got you in trouble?
Yeah, the wife just burst in saying, "What are you supposed? I thought you were asleep," because I've been work since 3 this morning. So yeah.
Who needs sleep? We're in the finals.
Yeah. So, but then after the game, my son had the presentation, so that's while the game was on, and I was able to watch it just before they started the presentation. Then I was in the presentation. I was keep on looking at the phone, and I was trying to be, not make any noise and make people know what's going on. And then when they got in front, when I looked at them, they got in front by the 1 point. I just said, "That's it. That's all over."
That's what I thought.
And then I looked at the phone again, and I saw, "Oh, we're in front now." And I went, "Oh, well, the Sun's presentation part's a bit over. I can go back and watch the footy." And there was these other blokes watching the footy, Melbourne, and they're all Melbourne supporters. And that was after we'd kicked the second goal. Kenny kicked the goal, and I said, "Oh, is that enough for us to win?" And they're like, "Oh, shush, we're trying to watch," So they were nervous. And even when Milksham was taking the last kick, they were like, "He better kick this, otherwise we could still lose from here." So
that's classic Melbourne fan behaviour.
Yeah, it is. Don't make me angry. Anything else? We don't want to keep you from your wife.
No. she's left me alone now. She's she's fine. I'm not too much trouble. So, yeah, no, that's fine. But I was a bit angry at somebody there. Joe Boy Yessing had a thread of, was this game rigged?
Yeah, what did you guys think of that? I had that as a talking point. His whole point was that the umpires purposely gave Melbourne a bit of an armchair ride to get us into the finals. Was that what the direction he was going in with that thread?
Yeah, well, that was that thread by Joe Boy he started. Is this game rigged? And he sounded like he's a West Coast supporter. That's what West Coast people were saying, the game is rigged. But the free kick count ended up being 18-14 in their favour. And not just that. And
after quarter time, I believe it was even... Yeah, so I think it was 6-3 in our favour. So do the math. They after that, it was 15-8 or something in favour of them. So, yeah, that sort of doesn't hold up, that theory.
Yeah, no, it's just total crap. It's just a total stupid thing for a Melbourne supporter to say, is it rigged? And it's just crap because, umpiring goes, because they didn't give that free kick against, Oscar McDonald ducked into the tackle. But what happened with Oscar McDonald's one is he didn't have good possession of the ball. He sort of fumbled the ball, and then he took possession, and then he ducked his head and he got tackled, a split second after he took good possession of it. So that's why that wasn't paid. And I think that rush behind that was sort of dropped by Tyson, and he's saying, that should have been a free kick there or something, But, that swings around about. We won fair and square.
The umpires did not have any bearing on that game either way.
I thought the McDonald one should have been a free, but how ironic that West Coast would get screwed by a player ducking into a free kick and the free not being paid. So stiff. They've made an art of that. The only more apt person that could happen to would be Joel Selwood.
And you should have heard this. Yeah, exactly. This crowd they were booing everything. It didn't matter whether the free was there, whether it wasn't there. And, in every game there's going to be frees that are missed. It happens to us all the time. I've seen it happen for and against us. So these things happen. It wasn't one of those, 21-5 free kick games.
And look at the Vandenberg spoil fiasco.
Oh, that was ridiculous and cost us a goal.
Correct.
Yeah. Anything else, Mr. Angry?
Yeah, that's right. So, and I think I posted on that thread, it's like umpiring decisions don't win you games or lose you games, really. Even in the last moment, you get an umpire, after a siren, if it was a free kick and the opposition scored it. There's so many things that can happen before that, and other moments in the game that you could have won or lost, and you can't hinge it on on umpiring, really. I think the better team normally always wins, but it was great win, and I think we can all. I think now I might be able to watch Melbourne games without, without thinking it's the end of the world. Now that we've done it, but we've got to win that fight. I think we've got to win next week, though. I think we should beat GWS because they can't beat anybody of quality in Melbourne, except maybe Collingwood. But Collingwood, I don't fear Collingwood. I think we've just a couple of times, the last time we've played them, we've just underestimated them. But I don't fear any team except Richmond. I reckon we can beat anybody, anywhere. And in fact, I'd rather play anybody, anywhere but the MCG. That's which is not a very good thing at the moment because Richmond can't beat anybody anywhere outside of the MCG. They can't. They lose to everybody interstate. The only team they beat interstate is Brisbane and Freo, the only teams they can beat. So all round, I think we're actually a better team than Richmond, but I think they don't even care about playing outside of Victoria. I think they've just gone, you know what, just as long as we win in Melbourne, it doesn't matter if we lose outside of Melbourne. I reckon that's what their mindset they have when they do go into state, that they're not worried about winning or losing. That's why they seem to lose quite easily out interstate because just as long as you can go unbeatable in the MCG, that's where premierships are won. So I think that's their focus. What do you think?
Boys, any of you boys want to take a deep dive into Richmond's psyche of whether they like to play interstate or not?
Yeah. I don't know about... Oh, you go, Great Bonnie.
No, you go.
No, I was going to say, I'm not all that concerned about Richmond. I think maybe we want the Swans at the SCG. That could actually work in our favour compared to playing it at the MCG.
Well,
they can't win at the SCG and we can't win at the MCG. That's the thing.
Exactly. So it suits us perfectly.
Well,
Get on the Hume.
We're going to have to learn how to play at the G, because if we do win this week, we're going to definitely play one game there. Then, depending on how the cookie crumbles, and we'll talk later about all the permutations that could go on. So if there's nothing else, don't make me angry. Might leave it there.
No, not really. I think just that one thread of Joe Boys made me angry a little bit, but no, nothing. I've actually can't make me angry this week, but we'll just wait to see the end of the year. And it's with this team and this club. It's all about, since Ruse has come, it's all about once we break a hoodoo, we've gotten better. Like when Ruse first came, remember we couldn't win 2 games in a row. It took us up until his third year before we actually won 2 games in a row, I think. And then, then we eventually won 4 games in a row, and now we won 6 games in a row, and, then we won at Etihad, and now we can't lose at Etihad anymore. I think we should lobby the AFL to say that make all our home games in the finals at Etihad, because I reckon we'll have a very good shot there. But, so that's all from me, and go D's. Good night, fellas.
Good night, mate. Thank you for calling in. That was Don't Make Me Angry. He spoke about the hoodoos, so that was it. We ticked off another hoodoo this week, the hoodoo of playing at Optus Stadium that we had a 0 win record at. Obviously, making the finals. That is our... one of our final hoodoos that we need to break. The next one is win a final. And then the last one is the last day in September.
I suspect we're going to win our first final, particularly if we win on the weekend, and I suspect we're going to win on the weekend. I'm not worried about Geelong at all, and I think we'd easily advance to the second week.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just the euphoria of having won last week, but I've got before last week, I didn't think we'd be able to beat GWS, but now that we've beaten the Eagles, I think we can beat anyone. So,
apparently GWS are down to the bare bones on their list as well, so that might not be good for us, because they're the players we often crumble to, the complete nobodies. But
it sounds like...
I think there might be a couple of lower list ring-ins played on the weekend.
Well, it sounds like Kelly's back. I think there was a cloud after the game last week on Phil Davis. He seems like he's playing. They might put in an underdone Griffin.
And yet Dylan Buckley will still be the one who kicks 8.
So we finally beat a top 8 team this year. That was good. Going to beat another one. Embarrassing records. Our reaction from... we talked about the reaction from some of the ex-players. The Schwartz one was fantastic. Did you like that the omen of the week? The total of all the games played by the MFC players on the weekend, equaling the 1964. Probably means nothing, but it was nice.
Yeah, that was a bizarre one, wasn't
it? Who came up with that? I wonder who. Someone has been sitting every week calculating all of the games, and finally we got one.
There's some people with some freaky databases. There's some stats that come out that I think, geez, I'd love to be able to work that out. I stand by my comment on your Facebook page when you posted that if we don't have any changes for the next 2 weeks, we'll go into the final with them on 2008, which was a spoon year. So we can't. You got to take the rough with the smooth.
That's true.
Just going back half a tick, the reactions from ex-MFC players, and he wasn't a player, but it was good to see a tweet from the Reverend on Sunday night. He'd obviously been watching, and I don't have it in front of me. I can't remember the exact words, but it was basically, bloody brilliant Melbourne, big win. Good to see Dana's fired up about it.
And that's you've got 12 years of people, getting old and moving on and stuff that have missed all this. That's why it irritates me so much when you get people who, have a problem with the celebrations. And not even talking about the players, but the fans. It's like, are you people insane? Like, we know that we haven't won a flag, but it's like throwing a monkey off the back that's just amazing. And there must be people out there who've got parents or grandparents and stuff who have passed away in the last 10 years and never saw at least another finals, never saw us being respectable again. And I just think, how dare people say that you shouldn't be celebrating that? And I very much hope that we've got plenty more to stuff down the throats of the critics in the next few weeks.
Well, while we're on the topic, first, before we go to that topic, I'll just say Neil Danaher said, MFC September action again, bloody brilliant today in the West, go D's 2018. Thanks, Neil. All right, Chris Judd came out and said we celebrated too hard. I didn't think they acted like gooses. I don't think no one was doing cartwheels. No one was, giving the bird to the crowd. Did we celebrate too hard?
Go back and pull the tapes of the Adelaide game, and I guarantee you the celebrations were no more than minimally more than the Adelaide game. That's how people celebrate a close win.
Yeah.
In an important game.
On the road, against the odds.
55,000 people there booing everything that you do. I thought that was ridiculous. When Matthew Lloyd's the one being the voice of reason, you said something stupid.
Yeah, I really I didn't like that. We've got another caller on the air. G'day.
Hope it's not Chris Judd.
It might be. Chris, how you doing? No.
Oh, jeez.
No. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, no, not Chris Judd. Filthy here. How you going tonight, lads?
Not too bad, Filthy. What do you want to talk about?
I just want to talk about how I'm just finally walking with a spring in my step. I'm one of these long, sort of optimistic Melbourne fans, and obviously the last 12 years of saying to all my Hawthorn and Geelong supporting mates that, the tide will turn and we'll get better, and Dean Bailey was our saviour, and then players like Shane Valenti and Lucas Cook were going to be our saviour, and
Mate,
and then
we've all been there.
Yeah, and then obviously with Mark Neild as well, I sort of probably went off a bit early saying he was going to be the next premiership coach of Melbourne, and all these Geelong and Hawthorn supporting friends of mine obviously haven't been able to let me live those down. So it's finally good to be able to call up a few mates on Sunday afternoon and collect a few bets when they said that, Melbourne were no chance to make the 8 or no chance to beat the Eagles, and how we're mentally soft and weak. And just watching them pre-game Sunday afternoon, they just looked like a team that were going to win. I don't know what it was. Just looking at them, they looked like they were men possessed, and I was super proud of them. And there may have been a few tears from a grown man here in Ballarat when Kenty kicked that goal. As soon as Kenty kicked that goal, that was a couple of minutes ago, I was like, no, we've got this in the bag. To be 5-6 points down when Lecrae kicked that goal, got them in front, and in previous weeks compared to previous years, we just the body language would have changed to a negative sort of vibe, and we would have completely lost the plot. And the boys dug deep and showed a bit of grit, and it was just really good to us. Good to see that we could finally fight back and prove the doubters wrong, that we're not mentally weak and we deserve to be in the 8, and we can actually really give it a good shake and maybe even get there to the last Saturday in September.
What do you think, boys?
The words last
agree
Saturday
with
in
all that.
September. I just need a moment.
Yeah, look, I've got belief that we can do some damage. I was saying it sort of all year, and I think I thought we could beat anyone, and I sort of lost a bit of faith after the Geelong thing because I did think we couldn't get over that mentally weak thing. But I think, I don't know. Maybe it's, as I said, maybe it's just the euphoria still from Sunday's game, and maybe it's the sunshine in Perth that I experienced. But yeah, I feel we can do some damage and in the finals and give it a good crack. Look, I'm under no illusions to say we're going to get to the final day of September yet, but we're in good stead now, and in the future, and I think our time will come.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting times considering that probably the last 12 years it's been pretty horrible to be a Melbourne supporter. I suppose there's people even older than us, like the generation before, that had to wait 23 years since '64 to see the boys make finals. So I guess 12 years compared to 23, probably a lot of the older people that sit at the game, they sort of laugh at me when I'm saying like 12 years, and I'm like, well, you didn't need to wait 23 years. They were sort of around when Ron Barassi was running around and Norm Smith coaching, and they can they've been lucky enough to see a flag, but they've also had to wait a long time as well, and it's just really pleasing to see the boys back in there, and even some non-Melbourne supporters, excluding the West Coast fans, that are still sulking about the umpires, which is hilarious considering they can armchair ride most weeks in Perth, but to actually have some even non-Melbourne supporting fans come up to work on Monday morning to say how happy they are for Melbourne being in finals, and probably because of Nathan Jones. They're just so happy to see that Nathan Jones stuck around. He could have left to go to a more successful club, and for him to stick to Melbourne and finally be able to play finals and hopefully as well finish his career as a premiership captain. It was really pleasing to see, and I think there's a lot of non-Melbourne fans that have really embraced him as a player for being loyal to the club.
Yeah, you can't not love Jonesy. Even the guy I was sitting next to at the footy recognised Jonesy as, having stuck around, and he was well deserving of it. Anything else, Filthy?
No, just a very happy man, and hopefully we can just keep on along for the next few weeks.
Well, I like your optimism. Keep it up. I think we're on the right track. Whether it happens this year, it's going to happen. I don't know. I've got this feeling, so don't often get it. I'm more on the pessimistic side usually. So I like this new optimism that I've found, and hopefully it can stick around for a little while.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Filthy. Appreciate the call.
Thanks, guys.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Well, that was Filthy. Boys, so we did get on Twitter during the week. Someone had, tagged me or whatever it's called on Twitter about Sam Frost, and I thought, well, I've got to mention it. They've asked us to mention it. Just ensuring, from Lindsay, this gets a mention it deserves. Frosty from 11 disposals had 100% efficiency, and I know people have been critical in the past of his efficiency, but 100% efficiency, got to be happy with that.
Yeah, I think he's trying to play more, or maybe he's been instructed to play within his limitations. Oscar McDonald is proving to be quite a reliable distributor coming out of the back line, and tends to hit up a target, certainly more so than Frosty does. So there seems to be more of an effort to do it that way rather than exiting through Frost, although his kamikaze dashes at the speed of light through half-back are good for sort of gaining territory. He can obviously cough it up that way. So, yeah, he's been really good, and the only question is why didn't Goodwin go for him sooner? once Lever came out.
Yeah, look, I definitely think we should have played him when we played Petty. Hoping Petty comes along, I think at the beginning of the year we were quite happy for Petty to play out the year in the twos and get his grounding there. But I think Frost should have come in there, and I can't say whether we would have won that St Kilda game had he been in or not. But perhaps a more experienced head would have been better on that day.
Speaking of defenders, when Hibbard crossed the boundary line and went for the hammy. How was your blood pressure?
Oh, yeah. I wasn't happy because he's very important to the team in the experience, in his abilities, those big kicks into the forward line out of defence. Yeah. And they're saying, and we'll talk about injuries shortly, they're saying it's just a corky to the hammy. And Misson did say he was still sore today, but they've ruled out any muscular damage. Hopefully he'll play.
Fascinating to see that they've got the machine on the sidelines there that obviously gives them an initial assessment as to what's going on. Incredible to see that kind of technology that can be used on the spot.
So I heard that in Misson's thing, how they looked at that during the game, and I saw it a few weeks ago with Brendan Goddard when he did something in the St Kilda game. They were able to, they kept showing the boundary line and all the doctors huddling around the cameras to sort of see that. So it's fantastic that there's that type of technology. I don't know how long that's been around where they've been able, and obviously they need to have had cameras on the incident at the time, but it's great that they can sort of in real time sort of look at those things.
Yep.
Do we need to say anything more? Super Mikado, did you want to rant any more about the Chris Judd thing in particular, or have we done that?
Oh, I just think that, what a joyless individual, and I do tend to buy into the conspiracy theory in the chat room that it was just pure clickbait, because I think anything involving Hutchie has two aspects. One is that they enjoy clickbait, and two is that they enjoy selling ads to, carpet stores in Euroa. But if I was him, I wouldn't have even. If Hutchie had come to me and said, "Do this line," I would have said, "Get stuffed," because that just painted him as the most robotic human around. And yes, I know he was actually paying us a compliment as a football club, saying we should be aiming further than that. But if you can't understand why the players were happy to have won that game, and again, go back and look at any close win, especially an interstate win, and tell me how much more they celebrated that. I actually thought the theme song didn't even have the gusto that I expected it to in the end. So I would say it's just insane to suggest that they went over the top there. And like I said, Matthew Lloyd, I know he's bagged us before when we were 5 years ago, going bananas, probably twice as bananas as that for winning games. And even he was coming out in defence of us. So I just think absolute insanity by Chris Judd. Maybe he's regretting his decision to take big cardboard money instead of coming to play for us in 2007.
Well, he's been quite bullish on the D's all year, and I know in that thing he was trying to pay us a compliment, but I think that it's just a ludicrous thing to say, considering the circumstances. If this had just been a game during the year, I don't know. Even then, I don't think they celebrated.
Again, just go back, and I'm quite happy to go back and look at all our close wins interstate over the last few years. But when we beat Adelaide at the first game at the Adelaide Oval, 2014 or 15, whenever that was, I guarantee you the players were going off like they were there. That was absolutely nothing to get excited about.
Yeah.
From his perspective, it was plenty to get excited about from our players' perspective. But of course, if you're watching it and you're listening to the commentary, where the commentators say, "Oh, the D's are going back to September," you're drawing that conclusion that they're going off because they're going back in September. Whereas I'm sure, and ask a player the next time you've got one on, were they even thinking that? Or were they just thinking, we won a close game, and then, oh yeah, and by the way, that gets us into the finals? Absolutely ridiculous by Judd.
Yeah, I agree. And I must say, we've just been bought out. Demonland has been bought out by Croc Media and
that'll be me. That'll be me off. See you later. You can this sacking courtesy of Carpet called Benalla.
Well, I was surprised actually that you're on tonight anyway, Super Mikado, because I tend to associate you with the old Melbourne. You're from the Vale of Negativity school. And obviously that club is now dead, buried and cremated in Tony Abbott's words.
The Vale of Negativity has been tossed off and replaced with the Vale of Triumph.
Yes. Yeah.
We've got another caller on the line. Good evening, you're on the air.
G'day, fellas. It's Binman.
Binman, how you doing, mate?
Very, very excited still.
I can imagine, as we all are.
Yeah, let me be the first to say that I don't mind saying that I predicted we'd win on this podcast exactly a week ago, and so it passed. I was so excited on Sunday, I should say, as excited as I've been for a long, long time in a footy match, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was amazing. What was your reaction during the game? Do you have a reaction story?
Don't make you angry. No, someone else, one of the other callers, my wife doesn't quite understand the passion to which I follow the game, and so I was watching the game with headphones on, so no sound. Relatively quiet until the last quarter. A couple of expletives around umpiring decisions and a few random, well done, boys. But I ramped up the excitement somewhat and the volume somewhat when Kent kicked that goal and even the lead up to that. So, yeah, it was probably quite a strange sound. I had the kids coming running to see what was happening because, of course, they couldn't hear the football because they had the headphones on. Just my yelling.
I actually, when Kent kicked that goal, I sort of jumped up and cheered so loudly that I actually got dizzy. Is that ever happened to any of you guys, or is it just my unhealthy body?
Yeah,
it did on Sunday so much. I yelled so loudly.
I actually take 2 Panadol to the game with me. I've got 2 Panadol in my pocket every time I go to the footy, just in case it's. It becomes one of those high-level games because then I inevitably don't feel great at some point from shouting and screaming.
Is that for headaches or for stomach issues or for like...
No, headaches from shouting, yeah.
I'll take stomach issues. I often find myself going to the game feeling sick in the stomach. Doesn't tend to happen as much. Like the weekend, I was like so tense. But I didn't have that sickness in the stomach that I would have had that been happening inside the MCG. Like the quarter time of the round 23 last year, I just felt sick to my stomach, like someone had dropped an anvil on my stomach. So you can take the head complaints, and I'll take the stomach complaints.
Well, I sometimes get the stomach things, but that might be the pie and hot dog that I have before the game. I must say the food it was quite weird going to Perth because the food was completely different. Different brands of pies, I don't know. It just didn't seem the same. So I don't know. It felt a bit funny, and I was surprised there wasn't any Hungry Jack's outlets there, considering that's their major sponsor. But that could be
Chicken Treat, classic Western Australian fast food.
Yeah, I think there was
outlet.
there was something there. I don't know. There was some funny food going around there that it didn't have that same feel.
I ate Chicken Treat in Western Australia, and I may as well have eaten roadkill off the side of the road for the joy it gave me. It was one of the worst fast foods I've ever had in my life.
We apologise to our sponsors, Chicken Treat.
That would be a classic Hutchie sponsor in WA.
Big man, what else have you got for us? Do you have a prognosis? Do you have a prediction for this week?
Well, a couple of things. Just in the game itself, I had different emotions in different games. I think it sort of depends on how I go into it. But I was really confident before the game, and even when we got headed I was confident, and it sort of surprised me watching the replay that I'd forgotten that we'd got 27 points up, and I was thinking if we'd lost it, it would have been, on Demonland, for instance, it would have been about, it's Geelong all over, we can't maintain a lead, what sort of team loses a 5-goal after leading by 5 goals? But it was a thrilling game. I mean, it wasn't as if, it didn't feel like we dropped off. It felt like they pressed and we couldn't, our game plan, as we've talked about on Demonland all year, is that high press, and if they get out the back and they score, and but I even when Lacroix kicked that goal, I was still confident. There was a lot of time left, that it wasn't as if we were dropping. And I thought I thought it was really helpful that the weather was great, the conditions were great, because, we just don't play that well in average conditions. So, I was quietly confident even when they did head us. But normally I go into a coma almost, but I was confident that we would do it. And, in terms of prognosis, I just think that the relief was such that, I really wonder whether, I'm not saying we're going to go roll through the finals or anything, but the psychology of it is that if we win this week, it is a bit like 80, is it 87?
Yeah, 87.
The year we rolled, where we get a bit of momentum up, because our game plan is, whatever you think about Melbourne as sort of a team, our game plan is potentially the most damaging, even more so than Richmond's. Richmond's all about that hold and press and the all-team pressure, but we're the highest scoring team, and we're four games behind Richmond, yet we've scored more points, or around about the same amount. We've got a very damaging game plan that I think, Ruse and Goodwin have been talking about, a game plan that holds up in finals for 4 or 5 years now. And I think it does. We've got the high scoring of the Bailey era combined with the, the manic pressure. It's a pretty damaging combination. And now that, the monkey off the back sort of thing against the top 2 team and we're in, I think we could get on a bit of a roll.
There was that interesting, these mean nothing, but it's the statistic of the close games if they went the reversal. And it means nothing because we lost some of those games because we, couldn't handle the pressure maybe. But we'd be two games clear on top of the ladder if those games had been reversed.
And just the last comment I'd make is just exactly on that point, is that there's been a thread pretty much all year is Goodwin on Demonland, is Goodwin the right guy.
Yep.
And, in that there's been some pretty, silly comments, but I guess that's okay. Well, obviously it's okay. But, I think credit where credit's due. We've come back, we've won that Adelaide game after the Geelong game. To get them up after that Geelong game, given how horrifying that loss was a fantastic effort. And to get them back after how poor we were against Sydney, up for this game, and they were on right from the beginning and right to the end. I think, if you're going to knock the guy for whatever his tactical weaknesses might be or whatever the case, you've got to give credit where credit's due in terms of getting the team ready and also the selections. People criticise, Frost not coming in earlier, but he did bring him in.
Yeah, exactly.
He's dropped Fritsch back, which I think has been a real masterstroke to cover for Hibberd. And, I think he's pulled a lot of right strings and all power to it.
And just imagine what this team's going to be like with another year under their belt, another 2 years under their belt. I can't see us going backwards. So,
No. And I'll tell a lie. The last thing that I will say is exactly that as well, is that his game plan, they've said they'll stick with it. And even in that Geelong game, he made the point that we outscored them in scoring shots at the end. So he's drilling into them. And you hear in the players afterwards, it's our game plan. We're going to stick with it. We're going to make the other teams respond to us. And I think that's what he's trying to drill in. Maybe in 2 years' time, we'll be able to get to where the Hawks did. And, in the middle of the game, we can go to plan B and plan C. And, but you need to know how to do plan A first before you flip to plan B or C.
Exactly. Agree, 100%. Anything else, big man?
Good on you, fellas. Been really enjoying the podcast, and hopefully we'll get a few more weeks of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll definitely be going throughout finals as long as we go, and obviously we'll be back for we do the trade and draft periods, so there'll still be Demonland podcasts right up until November. Well, thanks for calling, Big Man.
Terrific, obviously.
We
Cheers.
appreciate it. Thank you. That was Bin Man, Demonland poster. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't come visit Demonland often, come and join us. Demonland.com, join up. You can chat with us. We don't bite.
Punch on in the was the game rigged thread.
Exactly. You know what? Sometimes you just got to let threads like that run their own course.
Can I just say my favourite thread? Because I lurked for many years. It's the 976 page no TS no BS thread that's been going since July 8, 2011. So I would lurk to the front page of Demonland for many a year without posting, and it's just a constant for that 7 years. All we've been through, that thread is always on the front page. I think it's an iconic part of the club's culture.
I can just imagine someone who's never been to Demonland stumbling on that thread, reading it.
Start at 1.
Start at page 1 to page 10,000 or whatever it's on.
Yeah, 976 at the moment.
Yeah, good luck with that, and let us know if you come out sane on the other end. I don't think I've been in that thread for a number of years, but that also will remain. Is there need to talk about the Casey game? I didn't see it. Their streak is gone. There's not many Melbourne listed players left.
No.
In there. I feel for Casey at this time of year when there's been some injuries and the like. They go. Once again, they might get into a final series and not have any players left.
At least we won't just maliciously pull all the players out like we did about probably, I think it was our first year with Casey. We gave them sort of 1 or 2 players and they lost to Collingwood by about 120 points in their first final. That was a low moment of the affiliation with Casey right at the start. So I'm sure now we treat them with more respect, given that they're basically a quasi reserves team now. They've got our man in charge. It's not an independent team that's just using our players. We're actually, it basically is a protectorate of the Melbourne Football Club. I'm sure they'll get a decent run. They should get a couple of players back. And if your Jay Kennedy Harrises of the world aren't going to come back in the side, Cameron Pedersen, Garlett even, they should still get a few good players from us.
In terms of injuries, Joel Smith and Hills Bells has just pointed out in the chat room that Joel Smith and Hunt might be back as soon as this week. Certainly, if not this week, next week. Can you see a spot for, perhaps not Hunt at the moment, he might have to earn it, but Joel Smith, can you, with Hibberd back in the team, Bailey Fritsch playing along the half-back, can you see Joel Smith getting back into the team without there being
potentially one of them coming back, because I've seen this on the changes thread suggested by a few people, would be to try and then move Bailey back up the ground, either to the forward line or perhaps on the wing. He's done really well down back, but there are times when he gets exposed just because he clearly hasn't played back there a lot. So he's doing an incredible job, given the fact that he's just sort of been thrown there after spending a few weeks on the wing, after spending a few weeks in the forward line. So, that could be a possibility, I think.
Are you excited about the prospect of Jack Viney returning in a couple of weeks, probably as early as first final?
I saw Jack the other day.
In the flesh or on TV?
No, I ran into him. Well, lucky I didn't run into him because he was walking and I was driving.
Yes.
But I did drive past him, and as I reported on Demonland, he didn't seem to be in any discomfort in the split second that I passed him.
And is that your medical opinion?
Well,
how fast were you driving?
I'm not a doctor, but it was pretty clear what was going on, and I think it's actually poor form from Misso and the medical team that he hasn't played sooner, because he looked ready to me.
Well, we'll send that feedback to the club and
Question I have about that, and I do not doubt the power of Jack Viney to make a difference. But I think Tyson's actually had the best few weeks that he's had probably since his first season.
2014, yeah.
The last few weeks. So, where do they fit in together? Does Tyson sort of have to take a back seat where he might not be as effective? Or do they just take the pragmatic decision to say, chop, where there's no place for both of them, which I think would be really, a real letdown for him because, like I said, I think he's been in really good form the last few weeks.
Yeah, look, but I see what you're saying. I guess you got to pick your best team, but I mean, when you talk about Viney being captain, do you play him in the two? How can you play him the twos to earn that he has to earn his spot in some?
Well, are you even allowed to play him in the twos? Like, I don't know what the VFL schedule is like, but when do they go into the finals where he's not even eligible to play?
But it used to be that if your senior team's playing, you can
that's right.
play him.
The Cyril Rioli scam.
Yeah.
Where they go into the grand final.
So you can do that. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can't. But anyway, do you play him in the twos? Do you put him straight back in? And look, it's a sign of having a good team when you have to drop players that maybe don't deserve it because a better player's coming back to their spot.
And I think sometime you do need to be pragmatic. Like earlier this year, I remember Bug kick 4 against North. We shouldn't have picked him the next week. I can't remember why, but I remember 100. He was not required the next week. But it's like he's kicked 4, he's played a good game. You got to play him, and I think that might have been into the Hawthorn game potentially. But it's a situation like that where you say to Tyson, "Well, we can't drop him because he's been playing well," but then you start messing around with the structure of the team that has worked reasonably well for the last few weeks.
D Old Fart in the chat room has said there's a bit of talk on Demonland that Jack Viney might play for Casey during the bye, and Small But Forward has said drop Tyson or Spargo for Viney. Well, he hasn't said that. He's asked that question.
If you drop Spargo for Viney, it's not anywhere like for like. I certainly think this week Spargo, I don't want to get into the changes too early, but I think Spargo could do with a couple of weeks off.
We can talk about changes now. We're pretty much...
Well, I mean, there's not probably that many to be had, but I guess the question is Hibberd rested?
Well, they say he's available, but that's just...
do they not take a chance there? And do they... give Spargo that 2 weeks off. And I would say I'd be more than happy for Spargo to come back into the side for the final. But I just think he's looked cooked the last couple of weeks. Like all season, he hasn't got the tank to play 4 quarters.
Yeah.
And plus he's played, I think, 14 games at 18 years old.
Yeah.
I think he deserves to play in the finals team. But I'd be happy if they let him put his feet up for the next couple of weeks.
Who would you bring in for him?
I went for Bug, but I would be open to Kennedy Harris as well.
Not Garlett? Do you think Garlett's it's over?
Well,
they might seek trade
I don't know if
at the end.
it's over, but Kent, Hannon, Garlett, don't see what. And I know just a few weeks ago we were talking about how much better Melksham looks when Garlett's in the side, but. Yeah, again, Melksham just kicked 4 goals without Garlett on the side, and he's had an absolutely perfect ball laid on him in the square from Hannon. Does Hannon play the same role that Garlett does? Is it the role, not the player? So, I mean, personally, I wouldn't pick Garlett. I think that Sydney game was a really poor game, and I would want him to, get to the back of the queue, especially now that Kent, I mean, who didn't do much at the start of the game, but he had a really good second half even before the goal. I think he deserves to stay on the side as well.
I agree. Great, Viney. Any thoughts on that in terms of changes?
I didn't see any of the Casey games. I'm not sure about the form of Bug, but I don't trust him. I think his disposal and decision making is not up to par. Look, Spargo, I agree with Spargo. He's looking more and more tired each week. And I think I'm certainly not advocating the return of Jeffy Garlett because I don't think he's earned it. But I did think that we actually lacked a genuine crummer on the weekend. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that sort of worried me was the ease with which, particularly in the second and third quarters, they were able to rebound from our forward line when the ball came to ground. And I think at the moment we're missing that genuine crummer as sort of versatile as Hannon and others like A and B are down there.
I was just having a look at the stats, and then I've just realised that we haven't talked about Harms and Brayshaw. And Harms, hasn't he just been fantastic the last 5 weeks? He's taken his game to the next level. He's impacting the scoreboard. He's taking guys out of the game, but still getting 28 possessions of his own. He's had 7 tackles. Just remarkable. Possibly for mine, most improved award.
Definitely most improved at Melbourne, and one of the most
Melbourne.
Improved in the competition.
Yeah,
for sure. And
I think it
comes down to
neatly.
composure and decision making. That last bit of play where he spotted up Kent, that's not the James Harms of old who would have either gone for goal or tried a different option and not nailed it. But even he's just looking like a completely different player.
Even the time that he did go for goal, I think it was one of the first goals of the game, the one where Clary fell over. It was just, he didn't quite sell the candy where you put your arm out, but he sort of did a side step and he just looked really good moving through traffic and
good finish too.
Great finish. And he slotted a few goals the last couple of games, so really liking
the Demonland podcast's own James Harms.
It is. We've interviewed him 17 times this year.
And when did you last interview him?
Just after, and he kicked 3 goals the next week. So
and yes, what's happened since?
We got into the finals,
and he has been
integral to
bloody excellent. He's been amongst the best players almost every week since.
Now you sort of expect him to be in the middle for every ball up, and certainly at the beginning of the year we weren't thinking that, and I'm rapt. He's been amazing. Brayshaw as well. We've said it a few weeks this year, but he's also taken another step up this year, and 10 tackles and 26 disposals is just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been very good. The disposal efficiency is not spectacular, but that's not always. You need some players in the team who are just full-scale grunts rather than the silky players. And I think that's probably been our problem for a few years, that we didn't have the silk, whereas now we're starting to get some of that in.
Yeah. Well, we've now gone back to talking about the players. So we'll talk about changes. I think it's more of a resting thing. I don't think anyone's going to get dropped for their performance.
I guess the question is, if Hibberd does get rested, is that like if Joel Smith is fit, does he play? But if Joel Smith is not fit, there is not a lot in the tank in defence.
Wagner, perhaps. I have no idea.
He'd be the first one I could think of as well. Which
I don't know what his form's like, but
for a last round, sort of filler.
But do we go? Obviously, if there's injury concerns, you got to rest. But I wouldn't be doing a Freo and resting players because I think we need to go out for the win. And I'm not suggesting we wouldn't, but we've got a home.
Then we can rest afterwards.
That's right.
It's better at this point, I think, to keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
Than anything, it's winning here would be massive, especially with the week off as well, I suppose. Like, I'm not sure whether better to just roll straight into the finals, 1998 style, on a big run. But at least the win going into the break would probably build up the first final to be absolutely massive.
Yeah. Look,
Not that it won't be anyway.
The AFL have the rest for a reason and might help us with getting Viney ready. So and maybe a few of the other players, but we'll see how that goes for us. The road to the Cup, or just even the road to the first week of finals. How many? I would be meaning to say it all game. When we won the game, I was obviously ecstatic and elated that we had won, but I didn't actually realise that we were a shoo-in. I've done so many permutations of finals, so many of the ladder predictors that I didn't realise that we were in. That was, I was still thinking I had to sweat on other results.
Yep.
The next week. So it wasn't until afterwards, and I'm reading on Demonland, and I'm like, oh my God. So I had a second wind of elation. I didn't actually, because I wasn't standing with anyone that I knew, and I wasn't even around other Melbourne supporters, I didn't realise that had got us into the finals. So it wasn't until about 10 minutes later that I realised. But now
Port losing to Collingwood was what set it up as a win and in proposition.
See, I didn't know that going into the game. Possibly because I was a little drunk the day before, so watching that Geelong abomination game. So the road to the finals. What's your preferred? Obviously, you would like a home final, but the rest. Who do you want to win this week? Super McArdle.
To be honest, I can't. I've spent so much psychic energy concentrating on getting us into the finals.
You haven't thought about.
I'm just like not flat in a bad way, but just now I just can't even contemplate. Like people who have got these theories that if Fremantle beat Collingwood and we win, we might finish fourth and all that. No, I can't do that. Like I've got on my famous the artist formerly known as the Bradbury Plan ladder predictor. We play Sydney at home again if they lose to Hawthorn. And then if you fling that around the other way and say Hawthorn win, we play GWS. No, we play Hawthorn here. But then if we lose to GWS, it gets different. Then we play Sydney in Sydney. And then if Sydney lose to Hawthorn and we lose to GWS, I almost just put a 780-point win in there. I've got us playing Collingwood, which would be excitement plus.
Wait, what I thought
there's the four swing. I don't get Geelong at all because I think people are factoring in Geelong not beating our percentage.
Oh,
whereas if they don't win by 100 against Gold Coast, they're kidding themselves.
They'll win by 80 at least, which is more than enough for them. There's no way they're not going to put them absolutely away.
Maybe let's hope they go for the full 190 experience.
Yeah.
But we only need to win, and their percentage then becomes irrelevant.
If we win, we're fifth, unless Collingwood loses. Collingwood's not going to lose to Freo. If anyone watched the Geelong Fremantle game last week, and I know that teams can have turnarounds, Collingwood aren't going to lose that game. Do you think there's any way that Collingwood loses that game?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. So I'm going on the premise that we're going to finish either 5th or 8th. So 5th we play Geelong, 8th we play GWS. I don't think there's any other way, any other combinations.
No, that's pretty much it.
So I guess
because I've got Hawthorn. Hawthorn is only 0.2 behind Collingwood.
Yeah.
So presumably, yes, Collingwood beats Fremantle by more than Hawthorn would beat Sydney.
Okay, you say yeah. So Collingwood should
much.
So
I probably need to factor in. I've only got Collingwood beating Freo by 20.
So if we
change it to Collingwood beating Freo by 50, that changes Collingwood back into 4th and then Hawthorn into 5th. So we play Hawthorn.
Where are you getting that we play Hawthorn? In the first week of finals?
Yep. So Hawthorn beat Sydney.
Yeah.
That's if we lose to GWS.
Yeah.
So then Hawthorn finish 5th. We finish 8th because Geelong massacre Gold Coast and jump us and then Sydney.
No, but GWS, if Hawthorn win, they're above GWS.
I don't think we can play Hawthorn in the first final.
No. We can only play GWS, even if we...
Well, I'll be hoping that whatever we need to do, it gets that does, so I can say I told you so.
The thing I'm talking about is the West Coast, the route of West Coast having to fly to Perth for a preliminary final. I think 5th or 8th puts us in that side of the side of the draw.
Right, we don't want that.
So what we want is Collingwood to beat them. I guess if Collingwood then beat them, that's the ideal scenario for us. Not having to go through Perth, unless you want to go through Perth.
I would rather.
We're going
not,
pretty
I'd rather
well on the
not
road
push
at
our
the
luck.
moment.
Maybe I'm just saying it from a selfish point of view that I don't have to travel because I've made it known to my loved ones that if we play GWS in a couple of weeks, I'm going to Sydney.
Yeah, I likewise. I will go anywhere, and I say now anywhere but Perth, but I think if it was the first week of the finals, I would go back to Perth. Not that it will be, but should it have been, I would have gone there. So Sydney's a doddle, no drama. I'll get in the car and drive there. I've just been redoing the official ladder predictor, and I've got no idea how my bootleg one that I've been working on all season has ended with us playing Hawthorn.
We can't. It's if we. There's only 2 possibilities. Because I'm with the assumption that Geelong's going to thump Gold Coast, because I don't think we're either playing GWS or Geelong, win or lose. Depending on whether we win or lose.
Yep.
Unless you want to factor in Fremantle somehow beating Collingwood, and then there's the possibility we play Richmond.
Yeah, I've got no idea what I've done. Adding scores to a bloody spreadsheet all year, I think, has finally come back to haunt me in round 23. When I was waiting for the AFL to get their bloody ladder predictor up. Anyway, whatever. I'll play anyone. I don't care.
Yeah,
Bring them on.
I'm like that too. But my concern was whether we want to go through Perth in a preliminary final. And I know we're getting so ahead of ourselves. we skipped a week of finals, putting ourselves in. So let's
Who do we get in the
away.
grand final in that case?
Probably
Is that Richmond then?
Probably Richmond.
Yeah, we'll do them. Apparently, it's the first time that Melbourne, Richmond, and Collingwood have been in the final since 1939.
Yeah, I like that. Look,
we all know what happened there.
The AFL
so world leaders, calm down.
Yeah, the AFL must be
in a world war kicked on.
The AFL must be loving that fact, and I'm sure they like that we're back in the finals too.
Oh, and Hawthorn and GWS, they'll be loving it. They're probably a bit grim about one of the Adelaide teams missing out. That'll stuff the ratings in South Australia.
Oh yeah, they would have they would have liked Port.
And can I just say that how remarkable the fact that Port have actually plummeted to the point where they can't get in going into the last round. This amazing finals run that was being talked up also by me as one of the greatest finishes to a season of all time.
I think
has ended with the top 8 absolutely sealed with 9 games to play. But look at Port. They lost. They got ripped off with the guy hitting the post and getting the goal.
Yep.
And they copped a goal after the siren.
Yeah.
Like that is just, and they were 19-0, I think, up against Collingwood the other day. That is just one of the most remarkable plunges that I have ever seen. And you've got to feel for, and this is a controversial topic, I know this is more divisive than anything, you've got to feel for Jack Watts.
He can't make a final.
He can't make a final. And it's not even like a Nathan Brown, Bulldogs Nathan Brown style scenario where it's like he left and then you laugh at him because he didn't make a final. Yeah. It's kind of like, shit, man. Like, the other, for some reason they seem to have about 10% of our list from 2013. But Jack Trengove, look, he's like an emergency player only. I would like to see him play a final, but that's not to be expected. Don Barry couldn't care less. Jimmy Toumpas, I think he's still on their list. But Watts was kind of like Lyndon Dunn in that I wanted him to make a final. Not like Jeremy Howe, who I didn't want to make a final. So it's, look, it benefits us. So bad luck ultimately. Their likelihood is they're going to win 13 games and miss the 8. But that's someone I did think about the other day because I still want to see him do well. Obviously not at our expense. But yeah, it's just remarkable how they've plummeted to their death in the last couple of weeks just via sort of novelty things happening to them.
Well, I predicted that they would fall. I mean, looking at they had a pretty tough run home. So I wasn't really going out on a limb there, but I did predict it a few weeks.
But it's not even just the losses; it's just the nature of the losses.
That's true.
If they don't lose those 3 players at the end of the West Coast game, and West Coast that was almost a Melbourne-Sydney-esque last quarter of them ploughing forward at every opportunity and having absolutely no system with what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they just, in the end, by brute force, got there. And then obviously a kick after the siren as well. Like factor that out. Like, can you do a reverse ladder predictor and go back and change results? No, you can't. Well, that's stupid. That's a limitation of the AFL. Yeah. But if you throw another 4 points on Port, they're effectively, if you take before our game, if they beat Essendon, they'd be the 4 points ahead of us, and we would still either be needing to win or play against Geelong's percentage to make the 8 this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you to goal umpires.
Yes.
Thank you to Mitch McGovern. And thank you. Or is that the West Coast one?
The fascinating thing about Watts, and we saw this on the thread, which is now locked on Demonland, is that some Melbourne people are still wedded to the fantasy that we would be a better team if Jack Watts was in it, which I find just extraordinary, not only on all the evidence that we had over the years at Melbourne, but it's quickly been found out at Port. It didn't take half a season for him to be dropped back to the Sandful. So I'm staggered that people can still hold on to the notion that we'd be better if he was still at Melbourne.
Yeah, it would be easier to have that argument if Fritsch hadn't been such a success.
Exactly.
If Fritsch had just been if Fritsch was Spargo, if we got Spargo with that pick, and you'd say, well, Spargo's been good, but he hasn't been great, whereas Fritsch has been great. And I still think it's a case of it's where the one doesn't lead to the other. Just because you get pick 31 and then pick 31 turns out to be a good player, that doesn't mean that trading the player for pick 31 was a good thing. But in this case, we've lucked out, and I use that term respectfully to recruiters, that we've got the pick right. So what we got for Watts has turned out to be a really good deal. So I agree. Look, I've always been a fan of Watts, but I think we've made out like bandits with Fritsch. So I agree. I can't see how you could argue that we'd be a better team.
Yeah, I agree. I've always wanted the fairy tale of Watts to get there eventually. It just never did. And if you ask me who would I prefer tomorrow to play for us, Fritsch or Watts, and it's Fritsch every day of the week. Yep. What do you make of Port and Essendon? They were the two darlings of the trade period. We're getting A pluses and from all pundits, but neither of them made the finals. And whilst some of those recruits, Essendon's recruits, sort of you'd give ticks to, they haven't made finals in the end.
At least they got it right in the second half of the year,
yeah.
Which is one thing, which is not always a reliable indicator of future success. I think the year before Terry Wallace got the sack, Richmond ploughed home with about 8 wins in the last 10 games or something, and then just went back to being duds the next year. But I think, Essendon's trajectory is pointing up, whereas Port, I still think they've got good players, but, whether the trade, whether you're Motlops, whether you're Lindsay Thomases, Watts, are they the kind of players who are going to, deliver success? Obviously, based on this year, as much as they were very unlucky against the Crows, it hasn't looked like a great side for more than a couple of weeks at a time.
You know what? I don't feel sorry for them, considering we talked about armchair rides from umpires, whether umpiring results can have an effect on games. Just go back to the game against us in that last quarter.
Yeah, everyone but us can burn.
Yeah. All right, boys.
We shall clap our hands.
Any other topics you'd like to bring up before we put this one in the can?
No, but a big shout out to all the negative Nellies, most of whom weren't to be seen on Demonland this week, gone into hiding after the weekend's win. So
you don't want to name any.
Yeah.
You don't want to name any names. I've been a negative Nelly, but I always rock up though.
No, I'm talking about certain posters who only ever post negative things. But that's okay. The humble pie will be waiting for them for their return.
I think there's a difference between a lot of people can have negative posts, but there are certain people who almost just they want the club to fail.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So that they can say they were right.
Yeah, I told you so.
And I've got a mate like that he's a Collingwood fan, and he's actually got to the point where he hates Buckley so much that now he's had to give up. And it's like he still is like, no, it's going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong. And it's like, it's time to wave the white flag now. And I see that so much. And that happens so much with Watts as well. People were just desperate for him to fail so that they could go, I was right. Told you he was never going to amount to anything. And there'd be the occasional spike, like when he kicked that goal against Gold Coast that won us the game, or he had a great game where, again, all those people would just melt away for a bit. Then bang, they'd come back the moment something went wrong. I would hope that people aren't to the level of wanting the club to fail just to be proven right. But I think there's a lot of people who are ready, willing and able the moment something goes wrong to pull the chainsaw out and start cutting people up.
Yep.
And we also must thank North Melbourne as well for spectacularly falling. They were almost the guys that fell over in the Bradbury plan. You know?
That's true. Well, last year's Bradbury plan was ruined when we fell over. We got to the front and fell over. This time some other teams did it for us, but I'm glad. And look, there was, during the middle of the Sydney game, some nuffy Carlton fan tweeted me and it was like, oh, it's sad that you people don't have enough faith in your team to, do it yourself rather than waiting for other people to fall over in front of you. And it was literally just at that moment that we started conceding goals, and it was like, have a look, dickhead. Like, that's why we don't have the faith. So that's why I'm so glad that in the end, we did it.
Yeah.
We didn't have to rely on other people. Yes, in the grand scheme of things, Port dying in the arse, North dying in the arse, but that's football. That's how it works any season when you're in a fringe top 8 position and kind of a fringe top 4 position as well, which is a bit weird. But when it came down to it, when there was one game, go out, win this game, play finals, we started well, we took on the challenge, we came back from what I agree with what both you guys said, what I thought was the death when they hit the lead, and just gutsed it out. So, the Bradbury plan was there as the saver in case we couldn't do it ourselves. So I'm very glad to take that and put it into the shredder and be extremely proud of us doing it ourselves.
Well said. Well, anything else, Grapeviney? You've nothing from you?
No, just going to be very content for the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to enjoying it and expecting the boys to come out and play great footy on the weekend.
Yep, I think we'll beat GWS, but I can honestly say that I'm not going to give even more than half a rat's if we don't. As long as the signs still point and everyone's stays fit, then this week is a free hit.
Yep. Well, it certainly is. It's not quite a dead rubber because we do want that home final, but it's nice to know that we're already in there. And I don't think the boys will take it easy because we've already got in. I don't think they'll drop the bundle, and we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. I think they'll give it a good crack. So
I hold no fear in an SCG final against the Swans. I have a light fear of the Swans themselves, but I wouldn't be at all concerned if we were going to the SCG to play them.
Well, we won't be in the first
Or
round,
GWS.
which I've tried to explain to you.
Not
We'll be going to
particularly worried about
Stadium.
GWS either. And I actually, for personal reasons, would actually like to go to that stadium. So
Just to have been to another state, tick another stadium off your list.
yeah, and hopefully to like yell abuse at Scully or something if I walk past him in the go, mate, here you go. This could have been you. And then he'd probably point out that he's got, several $1 million in the bank and has played in 2 prelims, but he's still got as many flags as we have at the moment.
It'd be nice to knock them out of the finals, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be good for football.
Yeah.
The more years we can waste of their glory era with their list, till we get to the point where they start falling off the back end and they have to go into their first rebuild, the more the merrier.
All right. Well, do you want to plug your usual stuff?
Yes, you can read the post that I ploughed through for the community. I made sure I finished it before I went to bed at 2:30 on Monday morning. You can read that at demonblog.com. You can visit demonwiki.org for all your historical needs. I'm very proud to say that I'll be updating the most finals played list for the first time ever this week. Because, of course, Demon Wiki is 2009 establishment. So it'll be the first time I've ever had to edit that list. It'll be Nathan Jones. We'll get an update, and there'll be 21 new players added to it. And you can tweet me at Demonblog. I'll be very happy to take your tweets, unless you're a Carlton fan who wants to tell me that I should have more faith in my team, and then I'll probably tell you to get stuffed.
You can follow Demonland on Facebook at facebook.com/Demonland31, on Twitter at Demonland, on Instagram at Demonland31. Of course, you can go to demonland.com and join in the conversation every day of the week. There's always something going on Demonland. If you want to leave us a review on iTunes, I've had a couple of people do that. Please do so. Thank you for listening, and go Demons. We'll be back next week, and I probably should have been playing some music in the background during that whole spiel. We'll see you next week. Go Demons.